We are witnessing history in the market as the Nasdaq has its 8th straight winning week. In this video, I will talk about what the Nasdaq is, why this happened, and if this pattern is historically bullish. So first off, I'm going to talk about QQQ, which is an exchange-traded fund that tracks the Nasdaq 100 index, and it features Apple, Google, Microsoft, and more. So the fund ticker, if you want to look it up on the market, is QQQ. The NAV is the current price of the QQQ. They have 101 holdings currently and over 200 billion in assets under management. So QQQ delivers exposure to companies that are the forefront of transformative long-term themes such as AR, augmented reality, cloud computing, big data, mobile payments, streaming services, electric vehicles, and more. So it's really tech focused. And some of their top 10 holdings include Microsoft with a big allocation, Apple, Nvidia, Amazon, Meta or Facebook, Tesla, Alphabet Class A, Alphabet Class C, more commonly known as Google, Broadcom Inc., and PepsiCo Inc. So if you do want to see all their holdings, you could just click on this real quick here, and you're going to be able to see all their holdings. But I'm not going to get into that today because we have a lot of other things we want to cover. Stock rally takes a breather, but S&P 500 and the Nasdaq have best week since March. So the US stock lost some steam on Friday as a recent rally took a pause amid signs of a resilient economy that boosted hopes the Federal Reserve could end its rate hike campaign soon. In economic data, the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index showed consumers are slightly more confident about the state of the economy, which could help tilt a hawkish Fed closer to a July rate hike. So we didn't get any rate hikes in June, but people are expecting, some in July, which is fine. But overall, people are excited because even CPI, which was the expected inflation, came out slightly below expected. So we have some positive news coming into the market here recently. The June preliminary number came in at 63.9 compared to expectations of 60.5, according to estimates from Bloomberg. The index had dipped from 259.2 last month in its first fall since February. So global stocks got a lift as well from growing expectations that China will have to bump up stimulus as its recovery stutters. The Nasdaq is set for its 8th straight winning week, which is typically a bullish signal, and I'm going to break down exactly why that is. So this has only occurred 4 times this century and 23 times since the Nasdaq's inception 5 decades ago, which is tracked in this chart here. So if you look at the subsequent returns, the pattern is increasingly bullish as the length of time is increased. 1 week later, 57% of the returns are positive. This increases to 87% a year later, with an average gain of 16%. So if you look at this chart, it shows when the Nasdaq Composite is up 8 straight weeks, what the returns are 1 week later, 4 weeks later, 13 weeks later, 26 weeks later, and then 1 year later. So this is all the times in history since the inception of the Nasdaq. So we can see after 1 week, typically the average is going to be 0.21% up. 4 weeks average is 2.59, 13 weeks average is 8.49, 26 weeks average is 8%, 52 weeks average is 16%. So overall, we can see this historical pattern that even though people might be a little bit hesitant after the Nasdaq is up for 2 months straight in a row, clearly, historically at least, the Nasdaq tends to do pretty damn well after it has a good 8 straight weeks. So you can see one of the standout to the downside was the April 2010 streak, which was followed 2 weeks later by the original flash crash on May 6, 2010, which saw the Dow fall 1,000 points intraday. At that time, quantitative easing had completed, and the Treasury was busy refilling its supplementary financing program count at the Federal Reserve back up to 200 billion. But you have to think about what's happening today. There's a modern parallel. As the Treasury is now about to refill its Treasury General Account, TGA, at the Fed to a tune of 1 trillion, potentially. There's no explicit target, though. Another notable one would be the bull streak in 1981 ahead of a 14-month bear market, egged on at the time by the Fed's chair, Paul Volcker's battle against inflation. So there's a lot of things that you could compare it to. Obviously, don't just take this chart and say, oh, the Nasdaq's going to go up after this. History tends to rhyme, but it doesn't always repeat itself. So we're just looking at this chart to see historically what happened. So in 1999, the Nasdaq's rally break spelled trouble for investors over the long term. But as history shows, extended rallies in the market typically lead to further gains in the months ahead, And that's probably because it leads to, more people jumping in the market as sentiment really goes up in general. We can see that positive versus negative here. We can see that 57% of the time it's been positive after 1 week. 78% of the time we've had positive returns after 4 weeks, 83% after 13 weeks, 83% after 26 weeks, and 87% after 52 weeks. So it's important to keep a long-term time horizon. I like to think about when I'm investing in stocks or even crypto for the long term as far as my long-term accounts go. So the longer time horizon you can have, even just within a year, you can tell that, hey, the returns have typically been more positive. So that's what you have to understand is no one really knows what's going to happen tomorrow, a week from today, a month from today, even a year from today. But typically the market goes up and to the right over a long period of time. So I would stick to a strategy and understand that dollar cost averaging, meaning buying every week or every month, whatever that might be for you, is a timeless strategy that has always worked. So finally, I just wanted to take a look at the Nasdaq here since 2000 is when TradingView has started to track it, or in 99. We can see that obviously there's been some big crashes. There was the one in 08, there was this big crash in the 2000s here, and obviously we had this big COVID crash. But like I said, typically if you have a long time horizon, your returns are going to be pretty damn good over a long time period. So keep that long-term time horizon and understand that you can't always time the market, but it's important to look at some of these trends here. And we can see, for example, one of the trends that we could look at here is the RSI, which is a technical indicator which shows if the market is showing signs of being overbought or oversold. So we're nearing back these highs from the end of 2021 in the Nasdaq 100. But something to keep in mind is that, is this rally going to be kind of overheated? We've been going straight up since the beginning of this year. So I think some investors are cautious and they're rotating around right now to sectors that have lagged behind, which I've talked about previously. Or a lot of people I know are just milking their 5% out of money market funds or accounts because it's pretty much risk-free 5% returns, and people are just waiting for another dip in the market. Currently, my strategy kind of sits somewhere in between there. Like I said, I'm really young. I have a long-term time horizon, but if you don't, maybe, you're a lot older and you're getting closer to retirement, maybe think about taking some profits. Obviously, this is not financial advice. You should come up with your own strategy, but it's important to have a strategy in general. So we can see that the RSI is in overbought territory here. And so people are going to be concerned when it comes to the Nasdaq being up so much. I mean, Nasdaq's up from about 267 here at the beginning of the year, up $100, right? So that's a crazy, crazy return in the Nasdaq. And we can see these 8 straight weeks in a row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 weeks in a row. That's only happened a handful of times, like I talked about here. It's only happened 23 times since the Nasdaq's inception and 4 times this century. So keep that in mind. This is a big run up, but typically this follows even more gains. So don't necessarily be scared out of the market just because the Nasdaq's up, 4 weeks in a row, or 8 weeks in a row. Apologize. Thank you guys for watching. I have a lot more videos in the vault that I'm going to be recording soon. So if you could like, comment, and subscribe, I'd really appreciate that. Thanks.